Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the absolute wild west of digital currency. And let me tell you, this history, it plays out literally like a thrilling Hollywood blockbuster. We've got deep mysteries, massive underground heists, a whole cast of eccentric characters, and of course, some absolutely mind-boggling exponential growth. I mean, think about it. Who creates a multi-billion-dollar currency and then just completely vanishes? Right off the bat, we're hit with the central mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto, a trillion-dollar global industry sparked by an absolute ghost. Someone writes this revolutionary code, launches it out into the world, and then poof, disappears without a single trace. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, The Mysterious Genesis, a ghost in the machine. So, to really understand how this all started, we've got to rewind to the dark days of the 2008 global financial crisis. Trust in traditional banks and central authorities was just completely fracturing. And in that chaos, a new digital era was birthed in rapid succession. In August 2008, the domain bitcoin.org gets quietly registered. Then, just a couple months later in October, this obscure white paper drops on a cryptography mailing list, outlining a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Finally, in January 2009, the network actually goes live when Satoshi Nakamoto mines the very first block, which we call the Genesis block. Now, what's truly fascinating here is the secret message hidden right inside the code of that Genesis block. Satoshi actually embedded this exact headline from the London Times. It did two things. It served as an indisputable timestamp to prove when the block was created, but it was also a crystal clear reflection of the 2008-2009 banking crisis. Remember, commercial banks were getting trillions in bailout money? This was a direct, pointed nod to the economic instability of that exact moment. Just days later, the software is officially released on SourceForge, and the network starts picking up its very first users. So alongside Satoshi, our presumed pseudonymous creator, you had Hal Finney. He was a programmer who downloaded the software on day one and actually received 10 Bitcoin from Satoshi. That was the world's very first transaction. And of course, you can't talk about early miners without mentioning James Howells. He famously and tragically accidentally threw away a hard drive with thousands of Bitcoin into a Newport landfill. But, keep in mind, at this early stage, Bitcoin's official price was literally $0. It was just a massive experiment. Section 2, the 10,000 Bitcoin pizza, the first real-world purchase. Okay, imagine for a second being the very first person to actually buy a physical, tangible thing using this brand new, experimental internet money. The year is 2010, 10,000 Bitcoin. Just take a second to let that staggering number sink in. This was the bounty a programmer named Laszlo Hanyecz threw up on a forum. All he wanted was for someone to order him 2 large Papa John's pizzas in exchange for his newly mined digital coins. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, unpredictable nature of early crypto. A 19-year-old named Jeremy Sturdivant actually takes Hanyecz up on the offer. He pays about $25 to get the pizzas delivered and gets 10,000 Bitcoin in return. Back in 2010, those coins were worth maybe $41 total. Today, well, that exact amount of Bitcoin would be valued in the hundreds of millions. No joke, it is arguably the most expensive meal in human history. That seemingly innocent little transaction was the first commercial use of the currency. It proved that peer-to-peer digital money could actually be swapped for real-world goods. And because of that monumental legacy, May 22nd is now celebrated every single year by the entire crypto community as Bitcoin Pizza Day. Section 3. The Silk Road Underground, the Dark Web Economy. But, as you might guess, the story quickly takes a much darker turn. Once the currency proved it had real utility, it immediately caught the eye of folks looking to operate entirely outside the law. This is the lawless second act of our history, totally defined by legal ambiguity and underground shadow markets. February 2011, an online black market called Silk Road launches on the dark web. It was created by an American named Ross Ulbricht, operating under the highly dramatic alias Dread Pirate Roberts. Heavily influenced by libertarian ideals, Ulbricht built this marketplace specifically to function with zero government oversight. The actual mechanics of Silk Road, they were highly sophisticated for the time. Ulbricht combined the Tor network to completely hide user IP addresses with Bitcoin to facilitate anonymous, untraceable transactions. But here's the thing, a marketplace without laws still needs trust, right? So he implemented an automated escrow payment system to make sure buyers and sellers didn't just scam each other. It kept transaction costs low and built an incredibly robust, self-policing underground economy. And the sheer scale of this operation was massive. Between its launch in early 2011 and its eventual shutdown by the FBI in mid-2013, Silk Road facilitated sales of over 9.5 million bitcoins. That is a staggering amount. It was this undeniable demonstration of the currency's power, but at the same time, it was a glaring neon sign pointing to the urgent need for some kind of regulatory clarity. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4, the Mt. Gox catastrophe, the biggest heist in crypto history. So, as Bitcoin started moving from the dark web into more mainstream trading, the infrastructure supporting it was still, frankly, incredibly fragile. By early 2014, if you were trading digital currency, you were almost certainly using MGOX. Based over in Tokyo, this one single exchange was handling over 70% of all Bitcoin transactions worldwide. Literally, the entire global ecosystem was precariously balancing on the shoulders of just one company. And then, the absolute unthinkable happens. February 24th, 2014, Mt. Gox suddenly suspends all trading. A few hours later, the website just goes offline. It returns a completely blank page. I mean, imagine being an investor checking your portfolio, only to find the world's largest exchange has literally vanished into thin air. Pure, unadulterated panic set in across the globe. Soon after, a leaked internal document revealed the horrifying truth. The company was totally insolvent. Over 744,000 bitcoins were just gone. Security analysts later figured out that under CEO Mark Karpelès, the exchange's hot wallets had been quietly bleeding funds to hackers for years, entirely undetected. So why does all this matter? Because this catastrophe was exactly the wake-up call the industry desperately needed. The immense fallout led to Karpelès' arrest, and it directly forced the Japanese government to step in and create the very first formal regulations for virtual currency exchanges. The absolute lawlessness of the crypto Wild West was finally, officially coming to an end. Section 5. Maturation and halvings. Evolving beyond the Wild West. Emerging from the smoldering ashes of Mt. Gox, the underlying technology and the community really began to mature. The ecosystem evolved, displaying this incredible resilience that was actually built directly into its core programming. So the crucial point here is understanding how Bitcoin maintains its value over time. It does this through a fascinating technical event called a halving. Programmed right into the network's code, a halving periodically cuts the reward that miners receive for processing transactions completely in half. This deliberately and predictably restricts the new supply of the currency entering the market. The predictability of this protocol is absolute. It's practically written in stone. Back in November 2012, the first halving dropped the reward from the original 50 Bitcoin down to 25. By the time we hit the third halving in May 2020, that reward had dropped to just 6.25 Bitcoin. This cold, mathematical certainty is exactly what allowed the network to survive massive price swings, catastrophic exchange collapses, and intense regulatory scrutiny. And as we moved through this period of maturation, say between 2016 and 2020, the landscape absolutely exploded beyond just one single coin. Altcoins, like Ethereum, started gaining massive traction by introducing smart contracts. That allowed developers to build decentralized applications, or dApps. And of course, the peer-to-peer ethos really captured the mainstream public's imagination with meme coins like Dogecoin. I mean, it literally started as an internet joke and snowballed into a massive pop culture financial trend. Which brings us right back full circle to the ghost who started it all. Satoshi Nakamoto's original cryptocurrency wallet has sat completely untouched since 2010. It holds an estimated 1.1 million Bitcoin. By mid-2025, the estimated value of that single dormant wallet reached a staggering $135 billion. That makes this invisible, unknown creator one of the wealthiest people on the face of the planet. And that leaves us with the ultimate question as we wrap up this explainer. Will the true identity of Satoshi Nakamoto ever actually be uncovered? Or perhaps, for a system built entirely on the premise of escaping central authority, is this massive decentralized financial network actually better off without a leader? Thank you so much for joining me to explore the wild history of digital money, and I'll leave you to ponder that mystery.